Hello, so today I'm going to be talking about thyroid hormones, or in other words, TSH or thyroxine. So, what type of chemical messenger is thyroid hormones? Well, what is a hormone? A hormone is a chemical messenger in the endocrine gland which travels through the bloodstream to all cells and tissues in the body and affect how they work. It is a peptide or a protein hormone which is produced by the anterior pituitary gland to produce thyroxine, which is T3, and triiodothyronine, which is T4. This stimulates metabolism in almost every tissue of the body. So here is a diagram of how thyroid hormones work. So in the hypothalamic area, TRH, or thyroid releasing hormones, is released due to neurons synthesizing and releasing TRH, and this is transported in the anterior pituitary gland, which then stimulate thyroid stimulating hormones TSH or thyrotropin, which increase blood and also nutrients into the bloodstream. Then in the thyroid gland, during digestion, thyroglobulin, which is a type of protein, and iodine is oxidized to create thyroid hormones, which is T3 and T4, which then cause the breakdown of fat or lipids. It also increases nutrients to tissues such as muscle cells and skeletal cells. This increases glucose uptake, amino acid uptake, protein synthesis, and other growth such as puberty. It also allows the increase of blood glucose levels in the liver. And the overall goal of thyroid hormones is to provide adequate nutrients for ATP synthesis and protein synthesis. So here's a closer look at specifically the thyroid gland, which is located or surrounding the trachea and the larynx area. It is made of follicle cells. So those are what it looks like. It looks kind of like a flower in my opinion. And here is thyroxine and triiodothyronine, which is T4. Those are the two types of hormones created. So TSH receptors in the follicular cells, which are the butterfly-looking cells in the thyroid gland, stimulate thyroglobulin production, which is again the protein to make hormones. And TSH allows iodine through iodine channels to oxidize with thyroglobulin to produce hormones T3 and T4, which bound to proteins thyroxine. Okay, so the response of thyroid hormones is the regulation of energy homeostasis and metabolic response. By increasing the metabolic rate of a hormone, this increases gene expression, leading to also oxygen increase and respiration rate, and body temperature, also sometimes inducing lipid synthesis. This makes sense. For example, if you were in a sport, I'm in cross country, and our coach tells us the day before a meet to load up on carbs so we have enough energy the next day when we are perspiring due to exercising. So that makes sense. For signaling pathway of thyroid hormones use endocrine signaling, which targets cells that are far away. In this case, thyroid hormones are secreted in the bloodstream. First, thyroid hormones are transported across the plasma membrane of the follicular cells. Then it binds to TRs, or receptors, at the mitochondria and nucleus. Then it binds to a hormone receptor, which are response elements complex to DNA, where genes are activated. This produces transcription, or the copy of DNA, which causes translation and protein synthesis. In turn, this alters the cellular activity and targets the response. So here's a diagram of the process of signaling. So here is the thyroid hormone. It's transported across the plasma membrane, where it binds to receptors at the mitochondria and the nucleus. And then it binds to a hormone receptor complex of DNA, where the gene is activated, transcription, the copy of DNA and mRNA is produced, and then then translation and protein synthesis happen, changing the cellular activity and targeting the cell response. So now for the feedback of thyroid hormones. So when TRH is released in the hypothalamus, it stimulates TSH in the anterior pituitary gland, which then cause the creation of thyroid hormones due to thyroglobulin and also iodine oxidizing together to create T3 and T4, which target cells throughout the body. Then through these thyroid hormones, it reduces TSH and TRH, which cause a negative feedback loop. And the release of TRH is controlled by brain centers, which are the neurons that synthesize and release TRH. So if the feedback loop is not working correctly, then some disorders can happen. For example, hypothyroidism is whenever T3 is suppressed and the feedback is not able to work. So that is an abnormal feedback of the thyroid stimulating hormone and causes insufficient hormone levels. Causes would be overproduction and leakage of the thyroid hormone, drugs, metastatic thyroid carcinoma, which is a type of cancer that makes up the skin. And another cause would be autoimmune inflammation, which the immune system is attacking the thyroid gland. And treatments would be radioactive iodine to treat overactivity and thyroid surgery. And since iodine oxidizes with thyroglobulin, which is the protein that create T3 and T4, treatments such as radioactive iodine is used. And then another type of disorder would be primary hypothyroidism, where the thyroid gland is insufficient and low hormone levels with high thyroid stimulating hormones and no negative feedback in the pituitary gland happens. Treatments for this would be replacing the hormone with oral levothyroxine, which is synthetic to T4 and metabolizes in the body to become T3. Use dose monthly until the thyroid stimulating hormone is back to normal or stable. And that is it for thyroid hormones.